Today we're going to be talking about recession-proofing your CRM data. Our panelists will be discussing and analyzing the results of this year's State of Your CRM Data. So thank you so much for joining us. We're super excited about the content and takeaways that you'll get out of this event. And today's event is brought to you by the team at Modern Sales Pros. For those of you not familiar, Modern Sales Pros is the world's largest and highest quality community for those in sales management, sales leadership, sales and revenue operations, and sales enablement, aka our Modern Sales Pros. Our mission is to create an environment for our members to answer questions they'd struggle to solve on their own and help them see around corners they may not know about. We do that through live sessions like the one you're about to see, an online forum as well, and our quarterly summits that we just had. It was super awesome. And we're also starting to get back into in-person events as well. If you're not already a member of MSP, you'll be invited to join after this event. But enough about MSP. Today's event would not be possible without a sponsorship from the wonderful team at BuzzBoard. I'm going to hand it off to David to say a few words about BuzzBoard. David?
Yeah, thanks. Well, first of all, also I want to apologize on behalf of Steve Perotti, our VP of Sales, my colleague. He was supposed to join us today. He's got a family member who came down pretty hard with COVID. So he's doing a lot of care and tending on the home front there. So apologies for that. With that said, here at BuzzBoard, we have what we believe is the largest source of data on small to mid-sized business. So if you sell, market to small to mid-sized business and you want to improve your go-to-market efficiencies, we have data to enrich your CRM that we think can help you. And then the topic of this session is we think it can particularly help you in the face of what it increasingly looks like is going to be a recession in the coming quarter or so.
We are all talking about that recession. Well, thank you so much for that. Awesome. And I'm just going to go over our housekeeping rules before we dive in here. First of all, this event is being recorded. You'll be able to access the recording and key takeaways on the previous events page of the MSP website. Second, if you have a question for our panelists, please use the Q&A function and we'll be sure to get to you during the event. You can also feel free to use the chat function as well. And now let's go ahead and introduce our lovely panelists formally. Nipul will be moderating today. Nipul, you'll introduce yourself, and I'll see y'all at the end.
Awesome. Thanks, Roxy. Hey, everyone. My name's Nipul Choksi. I run marketing over here at Atrium. And David, super excited to be here with you again. We're going to be talking some cool stuff. I saw the survey and the results of the survey that you sent, and I'm super excited to dig in. As a marketer and a revenue leader, there's definitely some insights in here that I'm taking away myself, particularly as it relates to how we think about targeting and engaging our target market. And so with that, let me kick it over to you, David, and we can take it away.
Yeah, sure. And Roxy, I think I'm to share my slides, right? Have I got the mechanics correct here? Or there we go. I advance them. There we go. Yep. That's it. Couldn't recall if I had to share my own slides or if I just advance them from here. Got it. Thanks for jumping in there. Okay, so yeah, we have completed, we're publishing our report, our second annual State of CRM Data Survey. Many thanks to the MSP community and MSP for partnering with us to get this data in. We're excited because we had roughly 4 times as many respondents as we did last year. So we really feel some momentum building, and obviously there's some intense interest in understanding, what's happening with our CRM data across industries and across our peers and so on. So we'll go through some of the data highlights, go through some data points, highlight that. Where we can, we'll look where things are different from last year. And we've got some ideas on what folks might do, and how you can get your data in better shape as we face this period of economic contraction. And we haven't declared a recession yet, or the Bureau, I think it's Bureau of Labor Statistics declares that, but there's a lot of talk about it, a lot of fear. And in the next slide, we're going to see some of the real manifest effects of those fears. There we go. So Nicole, you and we're in the belly of the beast here in the Valley and in San Francisco, right? For us, this chart is the signal of the recession, right? We've had a great bull market run from 2009 or so up to current. And the $100 million mega funding rounds have really tapered off, as evidenced by this chart from CB Insights. And I just, coming on to the webinar today, I was just reading another LinkedIn post, the rounds of layoffs, the contractions. So as I say, we're deep inside. So I invite folks in the chat just to throw out, Nicole and I were, VC funded startups. That's kind of the bubble that we live in. But if you're watching and you're out in the chat and you're like, well, I'm not a VC funded startup. I don't care about $100 million funding rounds. You're in an established company. You've got revenue, but you're seeing signs of contraction, which could be hiring freezes, budget freezes, budget reductions, headcount cut. If you're up for throwing that in the chat and tell me what you're seeing from outside of the Silicon Valley bubble, I'm happy to see it and hear it and hold some space for it too, because I think this is impacting everybody in some regard. Okay, so what does it mean to repression-proof your CRM data? So as I said, we've had a really good bull market run. And, I read another article just the other day, Nicole, I forget who wrote it. They said, well, we're not really in a recession. We're just kind of turning back to normal, right? We're just kind of getting back to economic activity that is more typical and normal than what's matured and blossomed over the past 10 or 12 years. So that's an interesting take on it.
Although normal's kind of changed in the last 3 years, that's for sure.
Yeah. So what is normal anymore, right? There's, normal in 2010 is different from normal, last year or the year before, right? Yeah. COVID is all of these things. So what does it really mean? What's our takeaway on this? So what we see is, things like $100 million, Series E's, things like that, low interest rates, money has just been flowing, right? We've all seen it, whether you're in the Silicon Valley bubble or you're not, we've all seen the money flow. And what that means is if you're in demand generation, lead gen, revenue operations, you're just spending it. So you're like brute forcing your way, you're buying thousands of contact records and lead records, and you're brute force emailing them. And then you're hiring lots of SDRs and you're turning the SDRs loose with telephone calls and with outreach cadences and sales loft. And you're just slamming at it all, whatever your metaphor, slinging everything at the gates of the castle. You're just slamming at it and really trying to brute force your way through. And in a time of contraction where you have hiring freeze or you've had to reduce headcount or budgets are frozen or budgets are cut back, you just can't do that anymore. It's a big word, profligate, but the profligate spending fueled by free money is probably coming to an end. So you have to, it's the difference between working smarter and working harder. So we have to start looking at how do we work smarter. From our perspective, it's about data, right? It's about how do you enrich your CRM, get more data on your target accounts. How do you really get a handle on your total addressable market and understand what that is? That relates to your ICP. Do you have a solid handle on your ICP, what that looks like? And sorry, I'm just kind of also checking, looks like some, here's somebody still struggling to hire, lots of open positions, very few candidates. So I hear that too, right? Are there enough qualified candidates? Carefully watching expenses, feels like we are halfway in a recession. Yeah, I would agree with that. Feels like we're, getting our ankles in. And so there, optimize your spend, right? Carefully watching expenses, exactly, optimize your spend. And it's risk and uncertainty, right? And business hates risk and uncertainty. And so what happens is consumers hate uncertainty too. Consumers slow down on their spending because they don't know if they're gonna have a job. Businesses slow down on spending because they don't know what's going to happen next quarter or next month. And in the VC world, purse strings get tightened. Boards tell management, you're not getting any more money until we get through this and have visibility to the end. So you're going to have to make do with what you've got, and you might have to reduce costs to get through as well. So that's the environment we're in. And again, these 3 bullets on the bottom, these are 3 things that people can work on to help get through this period. And, the watching expenses, those are things you can do to help you watch expenses and make the most out of the resources that you have. And, the old hackneyed saying is doing more with less, perhaps, or maybe it's just like doing the same with less, right? A lot of companies are just going to be like, we got to hold the KPIs and the OKRs, but you got fewer resources to do it with. So another way to look at that is bull market, money's free, interest rates are low, $100 million mega funding rounds. It's undoubtedly that money gets wasted in sales and marketing, right? Because you got lots of it. You don't need to manage it too tightly. So that's changing, right? We're seeing that. So getting into the data from the report now. With that said, from the survey, and as I said, we had about 4 times as many people respond this year as last year. From the survey, we had about 41% spending anywhere from 25K to 100K on updating prospect customer data. So these folks are doing enrichment, they're doing data pen, they're going out and bulk buying records and so on. Then you can see the chart, the breakdown. That's up a little bit from last year. Depending on what bar you look at, nearly 50% increase in companies spending more than 25K annually. So that one's up. However, and this is where I come back to the money flows freely without a lot of scrutiny necessarily. Lots of purchase of data pen, bulk contact buying. But in the survey, only 8% of the folks we surveyed said they're highly confident in their accuracy of their data. So that's kind of consistent with the lots of money flowing, brute force, just vacuum and hoover up as many contact records as possible, and then blast them with email, blast them with SDR phone calls and cadence until you get success. Okay, so we also asked what's your satisfaction like with your current data providers. So a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being lowest, not all satisfied, 5 being very satisfied. 11% reporting very satisfied, 19% down at the bottom, not at all satisfied, and then in the middle, 70% somewhat satisfied. So that's gone up a little bit from last year, and I think all the links are posted for last year's report and this year's report. I think all the links are posted here in Goldcast somewhere. If you don't have those, we'll get them to you for sure.
And actually, David, just anecdotally, based on my observations and talking to other kind of peers, that very satisfied, like 11%, just seems high. Did that surprise you in any way? Because I know that there's a lot of factors associated with data that's just drives poor match and accuracy rates.
Yeah, I think it's a bit high. I don't have the comparable figure for last year. I believe it's a bit higher than last year, but yeah, and I want to be careful. I mean, frankly, we get folks who come to us and they'll name a competitor, and they'll say, "I'm so glad I found you because competitor X just does not have what you guys have. I'm just so unhappy with it." So in that regard, yeah, for the number of folks that reach out to us and contact us and say, we've tried X, we've tried Y, we've tried Z, and it's just not working. That number does seem high for sure. Right. Now the 70% is kind of like a big lumpy middle, right? This is like a bell curve. So it's a big lumpy middle. So, lots of folks middling and mediocre as well. And also, admittedly, it's sort of a broad question, like what does satisfied mean? So, we didn't drill down into a lot of specifics and details about, well, we got some slides on that, but at a course level, 11% very satisfied seems a bit high for sure. So we did ask, and I've got another slide, what about dissatisfied? Well, we don't get the match rates we like. We send out data for enrichment, we don't get good match rates against the email address or name. We get stuff back that's inaccurate, or we don't get anything back. And one thing I always tell people is who has, and Nicole, we might have talked about this on our last webinar together, has the best, most up-to-date, closest data for your business? You do, because you've got forms on your website and you get a real live person who comes and fills out the form. So that's always going to be the best, most recent data, quite frankly. So, and we speak to this as well. When we talk about account first, if you focus on the accounts you want to target and then get those current contacts, get your website and engage, you're going to have the best, most up-to-date, accurate data for sure. And so then the takeaway, I kind of harped on this a little bit, right? The bullet on the bottom right, don't overcompensate lack of meaningful TAM data with more contact data. So again, this is this notion, we're just going to brute force records are cheap. We're going to buy, thousands and thousands and thousands of records. And, we're going to give a broad swath. Give me everybody in fintech, or give me everybody in home services. And then
or
you
just add a new vendor.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's it. I mean, you can get away with that for a while, but when you have an economic contraction, you just can't afford to do that. And I see somebody here in the chat. I welcome all these comments. Contact level data decay 60 to 70% per year. I just had a case this morning where, I support our teams in prospecting and like what companies and who do we identify. And I saw on LinkedIn, oh, there's a person who's just like new VP of marketing at a company. They just switched. And I said, we should figure out how to find that person because I think they could use our product. No database is going to have that. No external database is going to have his new contact info from he just announced his switch to a new role. But me doing my own prospecting, I know that. So my database is up to date. So absolutely, 60 to 70% per year. I hear different numbers. And yeah, good point. Scale 1 to 5, 1 to 10. Maybe we'll expand it a little bit next year. But yeah, we try to keep it, reasonably simple for the survey, and then, try to like extremes, one at one extreme, 5 at the other extreme, and folks in the middle. So anyway, yeah, you're not going to be able to afford to overcompensate for a good understanding of your TAM just by more contact data. And another thing I'll name here on this point, we also went back, and if any of you folks are on here, we had some interns working with us over the summer who reached out to people who responded to get a bit more commentary and context on their responses. And one guy was like, the software that we sell, my addressable market was like every business in North America could use my product, frankly. It's a security product. We need to get a bit more granular than that, right? Like every business, just sell everybody. Well, you can only get to so many people in a day and so many people in a week. So you have to prioritize. So we'll speak a bit more about that. We got some account prioritization slides coming up. All right. So for those people who are spending money on data, they've embarked on a path that we're going to continually append, enhance, hygiene, find new sources of data. You can see the data here. I'm not going to read every single number. Accuracy, 55% said accuracy of available data is a barrier. Thanks to John, right? Data decay 67% per year. Your own database is your best source for sure. Availability of the data. We have pretty good sources, but we get inquiries from folks who want our data, and like they ask for something like, I just don't have it. I just don't have that, and I'm not sure how I could do that. Short of like a Watergate style break-in to companies who have the data. So yeah, sometimes stuff is just simply isn't available that we would desire. So availability of data is a problem. The cost can be prohibitive. Low priority, really? Low priority, guys? Come on, this got to be high priority. This is the whole point. And this is the point of this webinar. I think a lot of folks with a recession on the horizon are going to start making this a priority because they're going to see how rich data can help offset the effects of an economic contraction. We talked about match rates, same thing, that 21% don't use a data provider. I suspect that's the same 17% who said it's a low priority on the left. You can see the numbers there. So kind of all over the map, only 20% reporting 75% or greater match rate. So again, this is the most that you can do to keep your own database up to date with direct engagement, the better, because you're going to have the best data. So this is one of the key takeaways, I think. We asked folks, what do you think are the big problems from your dissatisfaction with your data, right? Poor conversion rates, 35%. Inaccurate sales forecasts and reports. Well, if you have challenges in go-to-market, you challenges in getting meetings and pipeline and bookings, you're gonna have a hard time getting solid forecasts, right? Revenue is an obvious one, right? If you have poor conversion rate, then you have, revenue that, loss of revenue or revenue opportunity cost. Inability to personalize, these all go together, right? I think most of us here understand that the more you can personalize your content, your emails, the better you resonate with customers, you get better conversion rates. And then this is interesting, a lot of folks said loss of customer trust. Need to drill into that one a little bit more, the wheres and the whys and the hows. But basically, when you're able to personalize, you're able to build rapport, build connection with your audience, and they start to feel that they're seen by you, and that builds trust and relationship with them. So now we get to what I mentioned a minute ago. Most of us tend to have more leads, prospects, suspects, or whatever than you can call down in a day, frankly. So this notion of like, well, my whole market is every business in the United States needs my product, so we're just going to sell to everybody. Well, there are 25 some odd million large businesses in the United States, 25 to 30 small businesses in the United States, 25,000 or so large businesses. You can't call them all in one day. So this notion of just call everybody without prioritization, it just doesn't work. So and there's a lot of talk about intent data, and we have need data, and some of the other folks out there that sell data are also talking about need data as well. So if intent data is data that shows, like Nepal goes, he does a Google search for something, he's showing intent, he must want it. That's typically how intent data is figured out. Then you can get a predictive intent, which compiles all that into other characteristics of the prospect or the company. But need data is more like static data that characterizes your prospects. And you can use that to say, if they match these characteristics, if they look like my ICP, they probably need my product and I should be talking to them. I'm not going to wait for them to demonstrate intent because that's a lagging indicator. So I can be proactive using need data. So what we found, we said, hey, do you already have something you call need data? And when the respondents did, overall, we saw a 17% increase in ability to personalize when they have need data. So I mean, that stands to reason, pretty obvious, right? If we know, the more we know about our prospect and the more we know about our company, the better we're able to actually personalize the data or personalize the messaging. When we personalize, we should get higher conversion rates, and we should avoid all those problems on the last slide.
It's almost like you can use, as a marketing and salesperson, you can use the need data to engage with an account even before they show intent, right? Like, I mean, these days it's really important to kind of set the stage and be in the, like, occupy the mind of the buyer before any of your competitors. And it kind of feels like, targeting and engaging with folks who demonstrate this buyer need, even before they've demonstrated intent, right?
Absolutely.
Is a great competitive advantage there. Have you kind of found that with your customers?
Oh yeah, exactly. It's it'd be like, wow, we've kind of been looking at it, but we haven't done anything yet. And it's also the old one, folks out there, in sales, it's one thing to like receive the RFP once it's issued. It's another thing to help the customer write
the RFP. Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So, yeah, it's a similar thing. So if you're able to have all the data points that indicate a given account is a good fit for your product and that they probably need it, then you can start talking to them and engaging with them before they take the motion to start writing that RFP, before they do the Google searches that show up in intent data, before they get to G2 and show up in that intent data. You can start to get a bit of an edge and then also begin to shape what they're looking for when they go out to market. And then, so the chart on the right here, really quickly, folks who said they did not have need data were less likely to have confidence in their CRM data. So there's a correlation on that point. If I have need data, I've got better confidence in my data, in my CRM data. If I don't have need data, I'm not so confident. I think that really just boils down to confidence is equal to what do I know about them? Do I know as much as I would like to know? So if I don't know as much as I'd like to know, then I'm not so confident in my data. I'm not so confident my data is going to support my go-to-market efforts. So with that, buyer need data is an imperative. We asked folks, what type of data do you wish, that falls in that broad category? Oh, are they growing, right? I mean, why am I going to chase down an account that is in a contraction phase for, whatever internal reasons, right? I want to know, are these folks growing? So things like, they've got a lot of hiring, you've got a lot of job postings out there. Are they hiring? Have they found a bunch of money somehow? They've raised money, or COVID. We had good signals around PPP loans. I want to chase after people who are growing and have more money. I'm going to prioritize those accounts first. I'm going to look at the technology they use. If I know my platform only integrates with Salesforce, and I talk to somebody who uses Sugar but not Salesforce, probably not much point in me talking with them. So I really want to understand the technology they use and if my product's even a fit for them. And then conversely, anybody who uses Salesforce probably also needs a marketing automation platform. And then this notion of need, and that's very subjective to each company, right? What are the signals that identifies that a company has need and use for my product? Broad industry trends, that's pretty straightforward. Within any given market segment, I'm chasing what are the broad trends about what people are doing, what they're buying, all that sort of stuff. And I've talked about hiring plans. That's the flip side of the coin of projected growth. There's different ways to measure that. So again, most of us here, I'm sure, just simply have more folks to call down in a day than they can adequately service with phone calls and sales loft and outreach cadences and mass emails from the marketing team and so on. So the point is, use this to prioritize your marketing outreach so that you focus first on the best fit accounts as measured by your ICP, need data, and other signals that tell you if an account matches your ICP. And you want to go after those ones because those have the greatest need and close the fastest. I mean, that's what you want. That's what this is all about. Who's going to close the fastest and the biggest deals? I'm going to prioritize all my efforts there. It's more important to prioritize because I have less resources now until this recession is over, whenever that is. I really got to prioritize and make the most out of what I have. So with that said, what are some of the barriers to getting all that sort of data to help you prioritize? Did we end up going backwards? How that slide ended up twice? I'm afraid that slide ended up twice. It's not supposed to be there twice. Okay. I wonder, these slides, yeah, I think there were a couple slides somehow that got left in there that were never purged out somehow. Okay, so moving on. So from the data, we looked at folks who so this notion of account priority score, do you have data to help you prioritize your accounts, whatever that is, need data, intent data, some way of knowing that this account should be prioritized before that one. Twice as many respondents who lacked some kind of account priority data twice as many were more likely to deal with loss of revenue and loss of trust. So we did this intersection of who has got this type of data and how does that intersect with the people who said loss of revenue and loss of trust were problems for them. And this is the key thing here on the right. By getting data that helps you prioritize accounts and targeting account by account, that's how you keep a watch on expenses and keep your eye on target, right? You're really, really focused only on those who look most likely to close the fastest and with the biggest deals. Another interesting, go ahead, Nicole, sounds like you wanted to.
Yeah, I just had a real quick question. I mean, this is awesome. And to your point earlier about when times are tough, you got to get smarter about how you do your sales and marketing, right? And obviously it makes sense to start with your highest priority accounts, but how does one get started, right? It feels like there's a lot of stuff you can use here, but practically speaking, how have you seen companies generally get started when it comes to doing this account prioritization?
Yeah, so, and of course, we help our customers do that exercise, build out an ICP. You can do it on your own as well. So an evaluation of who are accounts that are a good fit for you. And somebody might say, well, that's easy. I'm just going to go to all my closed won accounts in Salesforce and it's all those guys. Well, yeah, maybe, but don't exclude people that made it far, a long ways down the funnel as well. Maybe closed lost accounts are a good fit as well. But you lost them not because they were never a good fit, but because your competitor undercut you, or they had some other reason that they didn't proceed to close one. So you want to look at accounts that make it most of the way through your funnel, right? At least to an opportunity stage or to closed won. You want to look at that. You want to throw out any of the outliers. And then you want to look at the parameters about those accounts, right? Like that guy I mentioned, like every account in the United States is a target for us. Well, okay, but so east of the Mississippi, west of the Mississippi, right?
Yeah.
Or drill down into the firmographics. What industry are you in? What sector are you in? That basic firmographic stuff. You want to look at that. We do really well when account sizes or employee sizes are 500 to 1,000 employees. We do really well. There's a sweet spot of revenue from 10 million to 30 million, whatever that number is. So you start understanding those firmographics. And then, for many of us here that are selling technology, then you want to understand the technographics, right? I do really well with accounts that have Salesforce or Sugar CRM because my software integrates with those. And if they don't have either of those platforms, I'm not gonna deal with them. And then, what we do with our clients is we have all these other signals, thousands of signals per small business. We call digiographics, which is the digital footprint. Then we do an exercise where we explore based on who our client tells us is a strong, a good fit for them. Then we explore all these other signals. We evaluate their accounts to surface all these other signals to say, so, they have to be east of the Mississippi. They have to have the letter Q in their name. They have to have minimum 50 employees, whatever they are. I'm making it up, right?
Right.
Plus, if they're actively hiring, that's a strong signal. If they're Facebook advertisers, that's a strong signal. If they're LinkedIn advertisers, so all these digiographic signals. And then once you have that whole picture, you have a model, then you score accounts. And it's just like lead scoring. In lead scoring, nothing short of sorcery, 10, 12 years ago it was introduced. But now it's account scoring. So you've built a profile of your ICP. You understand the signals that signals that identify customers that are a good fit. And then you create a scoring model. Now, there are a couple ways to do it. Here at BuzzBoard, we can do all that for you and give you a score and then just pop it across to Salesforce on an API, right? And just say this account, this score, this account, that score. You can build a scoring model in Salesforce, and that's what we do here at BuzzBoard, because I take some data, some BuzzBoard data to help me score my accounts, but I take data from other sources as well. And I've found it best and easiest for me. I have a pretty big formula in Salesforce that crunches everything down. So now I've got that scoring model. Wherever it's implemented, every account has a score, and I just call it a fit score. And it's just a relative score from minus infinity to positive infinity. And I tell my reps, of all the accounts assigned to you, you run your report this morning, and you start with the accounts that have the highest score. Those are the ones that are the best fit, closest to your ICP. And so, it's the account scoring. It's that simple in a way. The hard part is really understanding what signals contribute towards accounts that are a good fit.
Right.
That's really the hard part of the exercise, is really understanding what accounts are a good fit, what accounts aren't. And on the flip side, just because this account closed lost, it doesn't mean it was never a good fit. You could have lost it for some other reason. Identify
so
those
is
signals.
that
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry. So my question is generally it's the ICP identification that's always painful, right? Because is like the CEO and the sales folks who are like, based on what we closed over the last 6 months, because that's top of mind, like that's our ICP, right?
Yeah.
And so just kind of curious as to how you've observed customers kind of crack that nut in terms of saying, okay, we can't just look at the last 6 months or whatever's top of mind. We need to be able to uncover these other signals as well.
Yeah. So when we do the exercise, we endeavor to gather as much data as possible, right? Like, go back more than 6 months, go back to a year, go back 2 years, go back to your entire database, and give me accounts that you think are a good fit and accounts that you think are not a good fit. But we analyze both, like a positive and a negative, and then we bring it together into the model. And we also encourage people that, well, don't just give me everything. Go through and of 1,000 accounts over the past 2 years that were a good fit. Go through and scrub some of the outliers, right? Some of the folks were like, wow, we don't really do education, but we closed that education deal because, one of our directors on the board knew somebody at the school. So that's not really an honest evaluation, right? So you clean out the outliers on both the positive and the negative. And then you can also add in as part of the analysis, well, here's 1,000 accounts from the past year that are a good fit. Here's another 100 or another 200 who we otherwise think is a good fit. So you should include those as well. And then why do we think those are a good fit? Well, because they're in the right industry, because they're competitors to these other 2 accounts that we've won, whatever the rationale is. Have some sane, defensible rationale for everybody that you're including, either as a good fit or a bad fit. And many of the accounts could be aspirational, right? These reflect accounts, logos that we want. So that's really how we guide people, right? It's history as far back as you can go, many accounts as you can, and also feel free to use some that are aspirational, who you want, who you believe are a good fit because they're lookalikes, right? They look like accounts that you already have. And
cool.
And this process is only as good as that input, right? Yeah. If you give me 1,000 accounts, you say they're good fit, and 500 of them are a bad fit, then the process is going to return accounts that aren't really a good fit for you.
Yep.
Or it return a scoring model that scores up accounts that aren't a good fit. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, the time to do it is yesterday, right? Because we're already 1 quarter declared negative growth. The next quarter closing will be the recession, negative growth, 2 negative quarters of growth, 2 quarters of negative growth declares a recession. Time to do it is now, yesterday. Okay, so here's another one. This chart is a little bit funky. So this goes back to where we started. Traditional approach, profligate approach. I've got all kinds of money. I can just throw all kinds of resources at it. I'm just going to bulk buy tens of thousands of contact records. And I'm going to run it through my funnel. And then as I piece together who responds, I'm going to get down, where this yellow bar is the size of the TAM. I'm going to basically a contact approach way of figuring out who might buy my product and who I identify is going to sell it based on who responds to all these emails. We find that ends up actually giving you a smaller TAM than if you start at an account level, because if you've somehow, through all your bulk buying, if you don't capture accounts that would otherwise be a good fit for you and score highly, you're excluding people from your TAM. So we guide people towards, we call it account first. Obviously, it aligns very much with account-based marketing. And I think there's light account-based marketing, there's heavy account-based marketing, there's a whole spectrum of that. But basically think about it, let's go back and ICP and TAM, those aren't new terms, it's not new concepts. What's new is the availability of rich data to help you identify the parameters of your ICP, which is working smarter, and then identifying accounts that really fit your ICP, which is working smarter. So then you look at the whole universe of possible accounts, you do an evaluation, you've got your ICP, you do an evaluation of accounts that fit your ICP, then you put a numeric score on them, and there's no, is 100 a good score? How about 200? Is that a good score? It's just a relative number. You score everybody. What I also do, I've got a great guy who programs our Salesforce. Not only does he give me a score, he also gives me a percentile fit. For every account in my Salesforce, he tells me, the top 10%, top 20%. So that kind of makes it easier as well. That compresses it to a scale of 100. Score everybody, either a relative absolute score or a percentile score. Tell your SDRs, tell your reps, always go after the highest scoring people first, because those people should close the fastest and the soonest and the bestest. And then you should have a defensible TAM that's much bigger than you would with a brute force approach of just buying zillions of contact records.
So how does this work with the intent data? You brought up intent before, and obviously both are important here, right?
Sure.
The need data enables you to get ahead of the intent data. But if you do have intent data, what kind of guidance do your customers generally give to their SDR teams and AE teams when they're prospecting, right? Do you always target people showing intent? How do you use this data together, if you will, in practice?
Sure. Yeah, and we use a little bit of intent data ourselves, and we have folks who layer that in. I like to joke a little bit about intent data. Is if somebody's looking at my intent for my Google searches over COVID, they would be pretty sure I'm building an opium poppy farm based on my intent data, right? But no, I'm just fact checking what I saw in Ozark, right? So,
yeah.
So I think many of us have seen the challenge of intent data. But with that said, Bombora's got like the intent spike. I think demand base has got a similar thing. One thing we see people do is if there's suddenly today there's a signal of intent. Acme Corporation demonstrated intent. Today, wow, they're looking at our G2 page. They did some other searches. It's exactly the keywords we buy. You score that right away. Like you add 100 points. You pulled demonstrated intent today. And then you can decay that. So the score today is 100 points. And with each passing day that no new intent signal came in, you decay the scoring. So, score 100 points over 100 days. So Nepal demonstrated intent today. He scores 100. Tomorrow, that score is 99. Tomorrow, that score is 98. Tomorrow, that score is 97. So you can roll that into your mathematical model to goose your score and then let it decay over time. And then if Nepal comes back in 10 days and demonstrates the same intent signal again, then he goes back up to 100 points, and you lay that over top of your basic fit score. And that's
interesting.
Yeah, we have a model that does that, and it's just all within Salesforce, just formula fields.
So it gets combined into kind of like a single number, so that it's as easy as possible for like a rep or SDR to operationalize.
Yeah, and over the years I've seen lead scoring models. They score in 2 dimensions, or they're orthogonal to each other, and behavior and
it can get pretty complex.
Yeah, it gets complex. I try to keep it simple, just a single number, right? A bigger number is better, right? Just run your report and just focus on the ones with the biggest number, and that's an improvement over what a lot of people are doing.
Right.
And Nepal, I think I even mentioned this on the last webinar. I was visiting a customer earlier this year, and the rep in the meeting was like, we've got reps in markets all over the United States, and like a lot of those people, they just go by their gut. It's like, I feel that Acme Corporation today, they're going to close today. He's like, I want to get out of that. No more of that gut, driving by your gut and instinct. I want it to be data driven.
Sure.
So, sure, a single fit score could maybe be a lot more sophisticated. You develop it on 2 dimensions and then offer both, but simple is often better. So yeah, great. So I see a couple of questions. I'll just jump in. I'm mindful of time. I'm 45 minutes in, so I'll just jump in. I see a couple of questions. I think there's only a slide or 2 left. Fit data, need data, intent data. So fit data for me is sort of like basic characteristics. Does this account look like somebody who I would sell to? Does it look like somebody who could use the product? Does it look like somebody who I already know uses my product? Does it look like an existing customer? Are they a fit? If you just think of, a typical BANT qualification, right? It's the N or fit, right? Sometimes it's instead of need, it's F for fit. Do they look like they're a fit? Need data is a kind of fit data, if you will, right? We have increasing number of data signals to tell us about an account. The firmographics, are they east of the Mississippi, west of the Mississippi? Do they have letter Q in their name? Technographics, do you use Salesforce or Sugar or Zoho? And then, we talk about digiographics, which is just a long, long laundry list of other digital signals. So you can use those signals to say, it looks like not only are they a fit for my product, they probably need it. It looks like they're a fit. They look like our other customers, and they're hiring. And wow, they've got a lot of job postings. That's like a need signal, because I sell applicant tracking software. And if they've got so many job postings, and they don't have any applicant tracking software, they're going to need my product. Now, intent data is kind of the next step. It's the lagging indicator. So intent data comes after they know they need your product. Then they're out there doing Google searches, best applicant tracking software. So it's kind of the next step in the journey. And this goes back to where we started earlier in the poll. Need data is using that. You can know they need it before they know they need it. Mm-hmm. Once they're demonstrating intent, then the light bulb has gone on. I need this product.
Yep. Very applicable for outbound strategies.
For sure. And there's inbound use cases. We get that too. It's like, well, that's great. How do I use it for inbound? You can use website customization tools with this data, right? You can use things like Mutiny to personalize website data. You can use Drift and other chatbots to personalize the dialogue and do a dip into Salesforce and pull the data point out. Oh, it looks like you use Salesforce CRM. Is that right? Would you like an integration with it with Salesforce? Right? You can use that on inbound.
Right.
So the other question, thank you for the questions. Where does all this fit with account-based marketing? Absolutely, right? This account-first approach absolutely dovetails with account-based marketing, because once you have everybody scored, what you'll see is, people tend to fall. It's the absolute numbers doesn't matter so much. It's the relative number, but you'll see people tend to fall in. I've got everybody like scores 150 and above, and then there's a certain category of folks that are 149 down to 100. And then there's another category of folks, their fit score is 99 to 50. Now you can tier those people, and you can say the 150, to 200, they get the most ABM love. They get the most ABM resources. I'm going to pull out all the stops with ABM on those top tier accounts. And then the next ones, which aren't a fit as much, I'm going to, give them half as much resources on my ABM programs. And why do you do that? Rashi Glazer, professor at UC Berkeley, taught a class, and he poses this tremendously profound question. He's in his tweed jacket. He's been an academic for years. He poses this amazingly profound question to the class. What is management? What does it mean to be a manager? And we all look at each other like, are you kidding me? This guy's crazy, right? What it means is resources are not infinite. You need managers to manage resources. If resources were infinite, you don't need any account-based marketing. You don't need any you don't need any managers. You just spend and hire to infinity. But nobody has that, right? You have to manage because resources are not infinite. And that's what management is and what managers are for. So where does all this fit in account-based marketing? Your account-based marketing budget, no matter how big it is not infinite. So you want to leverage things like account priority score into your ABM programs so that you put the best, most resources on the folks that are the closest fit to your ICP, the folks who look like they're the closest and bestest to close fastest.
I've actually also seen, in addition to ABM, companies that are doing lead-based marketing use the account priority score as part of the inbound motion, right? So you gave an example earlier on the inbound, but I've also seen where if it's like an A tier account that's come inbound, the SLA on that account is like 2 minutes. If it's a B tier account, the SLA is like 10 minutes. Right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
it really serves as a great way to guide the amount of time and the responsiveness of the SDR organization and the BDR, whatever you call them, right? When it comes to engaging with your inbounds as well.
Yeah, I mean, and you can divide up your team, right? This is the SDR A team. They've got like a 1 minute SLA to respond on that inbound. And if they don't have any tier A right now, then they're going to dip into tier B. But the next time an A comes in, they're back onto that, right? Lots of ways you can use that data to prioritize. Laura, you're very welcome. Just watching the chat here.
Awesome. I know we're coming up on the end. Did you have any other slides you wanted to share here, David?
No, I think that was it.
Awesome. This was awesome. As always, great pleasure chatting with you. If there was one thing that you wanted the audience to take away from the survey, what would that be?
Well, I think I have lots of takeaways. Just the quadruple of responses from last year to this year just tells me how important this is to folks. And we started the survey April through to May, and there was a bit of a taste of economic contraction, recession coming then. So this is really real for folks and serious. And this could very well be a way that RevOps people, demand gen people navigate through the next 6 to 9 months as we figure out how long this economic contraction is going to take. And again, it comes back to this management question. Your resources are not infinite, and over the next 6 months, they're probably going to be less infinite than they were a year ago. So you really have to find a way to prioritize your resources and allocate accordingly. To those who are going to close fastest, bestest, mostest, to keep up with your KPIs.
Absolutely, well said. Cool. Roxy, you want to take us out?
Yeah. quadruple the responses. That's really awesome. Thank you to everyone in the audience that participated in the survey as well. We appreciate that. So we're going to wrap things up real quick, but first just want to say thanks again to everyone for attending. We loved having you here. And thank you so much to our wonderful sponsor, BuzzBoard. They're doing some great things, so be sure to check them out. And I know some of y'all asked where to find the results to the survey. You can either go ahead and click on the sponsor booth up in the corner there, or visit the landing page, and we will also be sending you an email with the recordings and key takeaways. So be sure to check that out. Thank you so much to David and Napul. Y'all are always wonderful, so thank you for providing such great content. And as like I said, the recordings and key takeaways will be available on our site shortly. Don't forget to check out our upcoming events. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, guys.